these deaths are the first to be reported since the deployment last year in December. But they have, of course, drawn much criticism for the president, who ended up even having to respond to that in Parliament, as we heard from the different opposition parties.
Well, yes, indeed. In relation to the eastern part of the DRC, these troops are not welcomed by those who are fighting with the government of the DRC, because they feel that they are there to suppress what they say is a just conflict in terms of fighting for the rights of those who have been marginalized from that part of the world. You know that you have different groups in the DRC who are currently fighting. Just before elections, these rebel groups came together to form a one front fighting the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and therefore they are insisting that the DRC has reneged on the agreement to engage with them in terms of finding a lasting solution to the challenges facing that country, particularly the issue of security. You know that many people have actually pointed out that President Tshisekedi has failed to unite the country, particularly people from the eastern part of the DRC who believe that they are part of the DRC, but this ethnic grouping and ethnic divisions, the Kinshasa continue to support those who are opposed to mainly those people who are based in the eastern part of the DRC and blaming the neighboring countries. You would recall that last year we spoke to former South African President Thabo Mbeki about this issue, where he pointed out that the problem is leadership. As a leader, when your country is divided, it is up to you to unite the country. You can't blame your neighbors. But secondly, military can never be a solution. It is not going to be a lasting solution.
And, you know, still while on what's happening on the ground as well, I mean, the crowd continues to swell with allegations that Rwanda is behind the support of the M23 rebels. But Rwanda continues to deny this particular allegation. And I wonder how that is playing out, especially when you think about, you know, the international body in the UN saying that it's got evidence of this as well.
Well, you know that those people who perpetrated or who are responsible for the Rwandan genocide 30 years ago in 1994, some of them fled to the DRC. And therefore, there has been that campaign by the Rwandan government to ensure that those people can't come back to Rwanda to destabilize Rwanda. At the same time, the very same people are saying you have Rwandan soldiers constantly crossing to the DRC, fighting with the government of the DRC, supporting the M23 rebels, and the intention is to have access to the minerals of that country. So both sides are accusing each other, and that is why some people are saying you need a political will. I remember very well, I think 4 years ago, I was in Rwanda, where President Tshisekedi, after taking power, he was there addressing a CEO summit side by side with the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. And he made a commitment that he was going to bridge the gap between the DRC and Rwanda. And at that time, it was as though that there was going to be peace between DRC and also Rwanda. But it looks like we are back there. And that is why Tshisekedi took a decision to push the East Africa region contingent out of the country, and then he came to SADC, because you know that the DRC is a member of SADC and also of the EAC, asking SADC to come and help. And SADC did agree, as the president pointed out, this SADC contingent that arrived December last year. But the reality is, you cannot have a situation where you are fighting with neighboring countries in your own region, that is East Africa region. You don't have confidence in the region where you are. You think the region that is a bit far from where you are can have better solutions, because now this conflict, it's likely going to affect the entire Great Lakes region. And therefore, I think it is important for leaders in the Great Lakes region, including the SADC region, to find a permanent solution, because the military, it's not going to be a solution.
And talking about what is happening on the ground, I mean, according to reports, aid groups are suggesting that more than 1 million people have been displaced by the conflict since November. Now, this is a huge humanitarian crisis, and especially listening to what you're saying, it needs urgent resolution.
Yes, indeed. The United Nations Secretary General has also spoken about this issue. You'd recall on Monday, Shawan sent a piece that speaks to the humanitarian crisis and the fear that the area will be engulfed into a civil war, and that will affect the entire region. You know that the very same government of the DRC, supported by those who support the government, did push the MONUSCO or the UN peacekeeping mission to leave the country. We expect from April MONUSCO to start pulling out, and therefore you are going to have a vacuum in terms of security. Secondly, we saw the Congolese, particularly in Kinshasa, protesting outside different embassies, the US, the UK, and the European Union, even burning and attacking the buildings and removing the flags of those countries. And therefore you can see that in the DRC, as we speak, something is brewing. I spoke to the M23 rebel spokesperson and earlier on, and those who are part of this new front about this issue. They are adamant that the only thing that they are committed to is to ensure that they fight and they continue to fight, and also to push the government of the DRC to come to the negotiating table and them being included. And therefore, we are likely to see this conflict escalating.
And it says, you know, as a lot of people have been saying, quite a desperate situation on the ground. So let's see then what happens in the coming days. That is SABC News International editor Sophie Mokoena.